Hello, everybody. Jeremy Einbinder and Heather Warburton here with the State of the Revolution. It's been a while since we've done one of these, but today we are talking about Paul Robeson and largely his testimony to the House Un-American Activities Committee, which was a thing during the McCarthy era in which the government tried really hard to crack down on communist thought. Mainly, I think they targeted Robeson because he was an important Black celebrity, and he said that himself in his testimony. But we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about how activism of that nature, fighting for the rights of colonized people, relates to today, especially in the wake of heightened police violence, in the wake of the murder of George Floyd, and in response to the protest against police brutality that caused more police brutality, and how the government really just wants to shut the left up from doing anything substantive in order to better the lives of the most oppressed people on earth. So we're going to talk about that today, and this is going to be an interesting discussion. Lots of tie-ins, lots of contemporary examples to draw in, and this was over 50 years ago. So let's start it off. Heather?
So I guess I wanted to give a little quick backstory for anyone who didn't know who Paul Robeson was, that he was from Jersey, he was a fellow New Jerseyan. So, and his father was a runaway slave, so he was directly only one step away from slavery. But he was the third Black American to attend Rutgers, football player, singer, actor, lawyer. He spoke 10 languages. Like, he was really kind of the true Renaissance man and one of the forefathers of, the social justice and civil rights movement, but kind of got buried by history. That people don't say his name along with when they're saying the names of, some other civil rights greats, that his name really isn't up there and really should have been, because he was way sort of ahead of his time and being a thinker and an activist.
It seems a lot harder to sanitize the legacy of Paul Robeson than it is to sanitize the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. Because Paul Robeson talked about colonialism and defended the Soviet Union against charges of inequality in some circumstances because they were more racially equal in his eyes than the United States. And that was a scary thought, that some other countries trying to explore a different economic system could do anything better than the United States could. Now, of course, the government didn't really care about the rights of Black people and other marginalized identities, but socialist countries at least tried to, and America did not. And it was also hard to shut Robeson up, in my opinion, because he was a celebrity, because he was an entertainer, because people liked him. It was a little bit more difficult to like someone like Martin Luther King Jr. or Malcolm X, because all they were doing was making speeches, and people got annoyed by politics all the time.
Right. So he came into it with a little bit of celebrity to begin with. He wasn't just known for being an activist. He was known for this amazing bass baritone voice, for example. And they already kind of, liked him already. So he was an easier. Paul Robeson. And you could tell how charismatic he was in the recordings. Like, he says things and you actually kind of hear people at the House, the Un-American Activities Committee. Like, when he pleads the fifth one time, he's like, I plead the fifth and forget about it. And you actually hear people giggling. Like, he was commanding that room that you could tell he was someone who was used to being a performer, because he performed so well in this. Everybody else seemed like morons compared to him.
He said at one point that he does not see success in terms of himself. He's as in terms of the whole of his people, which encompasses the entire colonized population of Africa and African Americans in neocolonialized America. So he was basically saying that the success of a few black people doesn't erase the oppression of black people as a class, and that's an important point to make. Because at one point, one of the airmen, or maybe another one, I'm not sure, or who's at it, but he's and I played football at Rutgers. I remember seeing you play football at Lehigh. You graduated with a law degree. There's no oppression against you, and that's something someone could, let's say, to LeBron James. Oh, you play basketball for a living. There's no oppression against you. I don't know. The political beliefs of LeBron James or even Colin Kaepernick for that matter. I'm not sure. How revolutionary either of them are. But I do know that they paid attention to the injustices of people who look like them. And it's up to white people in positions of power to say, what are you complaining about? You're doing fine. Now, in Robeson's case, he was, testifying with HELAC because he was denied the right to travel. And that's a very important right if you're a singer, an actor, to perform in different places, especially in that time.
Right, and he said in the testimony he applied for a passport like 25 times. I don't remember the exact number, but it was a huge amount of times that he applied for a passport and was denied because he wouldn't sign this affidavit saying he wasn't a communist.
He probably was a communist, but he was trying to say that's beside the point.
Right.
No, he was restrained in what he could say because he didn't make any comments. He didn't make any affirmative comments about life in the Soviet Union unless they were presented directly to him. And so I think he might have sanitized a bit what he actually thought about the global system, and focused on the principle of free speech, which I understand. And if you're under oath, you're trying to avoid prison time, you're gonna say things in such a way that kind of sanitizes your perspective a little bit if you are a communist. So it's likely either Paul Robeson was a communist. He did a talk show appearance in Australia where he talked about how black people were responsible for the primary wealth of America, and that's basically a plain language version of what Marx called primitive accumulation, which is a principle of how class societies develop, and I believe Marx coined that term, primitive accumulation. Unfortunately, the largest analysis died before the implications of slave society reared their head. So there was a lot that Marx couldn't analyze. It would have been very interesting to see Marx's perspective on life in the early 1900s for early American black person.
Right. There was a lot he didn't get a chance to analyze that may have led to some interesting conclusions, or basically just showing, when all of our wealth came on the backs of people we exploited here. Like it was just pure stolen land, stolen people.
Yeah. And now
go ahead.
Yeah. And now we do it with prison labor and, informal employment of undocumented immigrants. So there's wage theft. You could work and not get paid, or you can work or can get paid substantially less than you're actually entitled to. And even if you do get paid what you're entitled to, you're still not getting paid enough.
Right. So I kind of wanted to bring it back to the committee a little bit because I kind of did a little research, before this program of who some of these committee members were on the Committee for Un-American Activities. And the chair, who you hear him like at one point in time, he's like, "Who am I speaking to?" Oh, and this guy's like, "I'm the chair of this committee, and I'm Representative Walter." And so it was interesting. I did a little deep dive on who Francis Walter was. And he was a Democrat from Pennsylvania, and he was deep into McCarthy. He was a supporter of McCarthy and really wanted to keep the undesirables out of the country.
Mhm.
And he was directly responsible for the passing of the Immigration and Naturalization Law, which Robeson actually comments on. Of you're trying to keep people like me out of this country. That passed in 1952. And it's interesting that exact the immigration and naturalization is what Trump used to enact his Muslim bans. Like, this Democrat from Pennsylvania paved the way for what Trump tried to do. And it was from 1952. And that's what Robeson was opposing in this committee. I stand against your fascism. And now, we see that fascism is still around. Nothing's changed since 1952.
Whether you deny people the right to travel, or you force them to travel, or you force them to stay in unsavory working conditions, there are lots of ways to exploit the colonized working class, and Robeson wasn't shy about commenting on any of those. For example, he made it very clear that Black people he has spoken to would definitely not go to war against quote unquote communism, would definitely not go to war against the Soviet Union, because this country, the United States, doesn't represent them either. So he said at one point, the government should protect people in Mississippi, not in the Soviet Union.
Right. Yeah. That the government is not protecting people here. Why would people of color go to war against the only country where he himself made a comment that he actually felt like a real man, that he wasn't just seen as a color when he was in the Soviet Union? And he couldn't understand why anyone that looked like him would go to war against the place where he felt human.
The people who were to stop that kind of progress. I'm not sure if the anti-communists of the McCarthy era really knew what they were stopping, or actually thought they were preserving quote unquote freedom for the massive working people in the United States. But there's a possibility that a communist world might come with it more responsibility for massive European descended people. And if imperialism were to end, that means that white people might have to do some hard work, and maybe that's what they were trying to avoid.
Right. Yeah. I think another thing that Robeson pointed out was that it's always the communists who are first to die in the fight against fascism. And, they were just coming off of World War II at this point in time, where, the communists were the ones that were fighting against the Nazis for years and years and years before the U.S. came in to save the day. That's the history we're taught here. And he's like, no, the communists are always the front line.
Because Japan bombed a boat or something, and then America locked up all the Asian descended people, and
right, we just responded with some different fascism, and then patted ourselves on the back and had a beer.
It was the interest of the United States government to instill U.S. hegemony as opposed to a German hegemony. The American government and the Nazi government were, in a sense, rival gangs trying capture the same territory, which was world domination. Now, as far as I know, Hitler admired Andrew Jackson, who was instrumental in removing Native Americans from their territory with displacement and murder. And he defied the Supreme Court on many times. I think he said something like, the court has made a decision, let them enforce it. And then he just defied them anyway. And so there's an argument to be made that I think Jackson was a worse president than Trump is. A lot of people are saying Trump is the worst president in American history. I would say that we're probably go to Jackson. That just goes to show you that for as long as a country is existence in a two-party state, what they've tried to stop is, actual stewardship of land, living on the land, and you control and self-determination of people of different nationalities. And for people who are living under empires, that self-determination usually manifests itself in an attempt to build communism. And they can't have that because under a communist world, there would be no United States of America. United States of America exists as a way to suppress. And the suppression it has makes the lives of people doing the suppressing very comfortable. And it bribes the people who are benefiting from the suppressing to stop it. There are people who do jobs that they don't like doing, that are a bore to them, but they get paid a comfortable amount of money to, own their home. They still have to pay mortgages, or they get enough food to eat, they have health insurance, got educated, they met their spouse, they had kids, they're not in mortal danger. Usually, these are almost definitely white people, because the person of any class who's not white is under more danger than the average white person. And that's where police brutality comes in. It's an occupying force in communities of colonized people to try and control them socially. There's a reason in there the cops are focused on, rioting and looting, because if they really wanted to actually stop it, they would, allow free access to resources. But if they did, then most of the crimes they're stopping would become superfluous.
Right. So I guess one of the tie-ins also that I saw was they didn't even try to deny who they were keeping out of the country when they were talking about this immigration bill during Paul Robeson's testimony.
Your kind.
Yeah, we want to keep your kind out of the country. And he's like, black people? He kind of calls them on it. You mean people that look like me? And they're like, or because he'd said, and then they're like, yeah, and then not only that, we want to make sure we can get rid of people like you. They didn't even try to deny the racism that they were, the place of racism and colonialism and fascism they were coming from in the speech. And I think we've gotten back around to that sort of that same bravado of people not even trying to hide that they're racist anymore, not even trying to hide that they're white supremacists. It's just they wear it on their sleeve again now. So
I think in the 90s, the economy was doing well enough that people didn't need to be over. The economy was doing well for professional class people that they didn't need to as actively suppress the voices of non-white people in order to keep them suppressed. They were still on the dredges. They were still doing the jobs that no one else wanted to do. They were living under terrible conditions. But the Soviet Union was over. There was no active war going on. One to actually aim. So, the racism of the Bill Clinton era was just us, the social order, and people started speaking out against the social order first in the election of a black president, and that started the modern civil rights movement, Black Lives Matter. Unfortunately, that black president wouldn't satisfy the needs of the most oppressed of the population, and even though people were excited that might happen, it just goes to show you that direct action is the only thing that the most oppressed people will have as a hope for them. Now, there are going to be people who are trying to water down calls to defund the police. There are going to be people who say, and defund doesn't mean abolish. Or abolish doesn't mean really abolish. Someone made a tweet that said, and imagine, and you said, you wanted to abolish slavery, and people were like, no, we just want to reimagine slavery, and that same tweet, he made a comment that that's the prison system now.
Right, that was the 13th Amendment. That was our, just changing slavery a bit. So, unfortunately, that comment feels really real. That was,
Yeah. Prison is where the undesirables go. And people's mind, the bad people. So, if you didn't have to watch people working on a plantation or working in a textile factory in your own neighborhood, you wouldn't have to witness the horrors like when prisoners are, doing this stuff of mostly that what made in America means now, for the most part, made in prisons. It's far away. Just like imperialism is exporting labor far away, out of sight, out of mind. People and live their lives that are to some degree shitty, but they're doing okay. Someone how to do. When most answers are like, I'm doing good or I can't complain, and people don't really want to talk about the exciting things going on in their lives because it's not that exciting. It's not that great. Now there are a few great moments in their lives in a way that it's almost surprising when someone actually tells you good news, because then you're like, oh, I wasn't really asking. I just wanted to continue the social convention.
Right. You're just expecting a superficial sort of connection there. And when somebody actually tells you, wants to talk about something real, it's almost a little jarring.
Yeah.
I guess what else did I have that I wanted to talk about? Did you have anything else specifically that Robeson said that you wanted to talk about?
He's and that. Hold on. He basically said that he said that the government is, and most of the people who believe the government's word are using the word patriot wrong. I thought that was an interesting point. That the people who are fighting for justice are, by definition, more patriotic than the people who are trying to express it. He said, I'm here because I oppose the neo-fascist cause. I'm not here because I'm promoting the communist cause. I'm here because I oppose a neo-fascist cause. Frederick Douglass could be sitting here. Eugene Debs could be sitting here. Harriet Tubman could be sitting here. And it just goes to show that there are certain things that slowly become acceptable to the ruling class because it's just not tenable to stop everything. And they don't look like, but they can chip away at progress here in the air by mass incarceration or by the routine murder of people who, are doing drugs or something to relieve stress. Robeson thought, I think, that communism just happened to be in his best interest as a black man. Oh, I don't think that he was necessarily a devotee of, the theoretical genius of Lenin and Marx. I think he was just trying to fight for the dignity of black people and other oppressed people, and opposing fascism just happened to be in the minds of the government to be promoting communism. The Soviet Union won the war against the Nazis. There's no denying that. You know, but as soon as the American government didn't have a common enemy, they turned their attention back on the communists, saying, maybe this thing has legs. So Robeson, in in the end, it wasn't a completely selfless thing for him to believe in the quote unquote communist cause. And it's important that a lot of people come to anti capitalism out of their own self interest, I think, because there are things that can actually better their own lives. A lot of people have this misconception of communism that it's one and the government takes care of you forever, and that of course is not what it means. That's never been what it's supposed to mean, and it is sometimes what it turns out meaning, kind of. I mean, no one cared about the rights of the peasants under the Russian Empire, or the rights of Cuban working class people under the military dictatorship before Castro. And who knows what Grenada would have turned into had Reagan crushed the tiny little country he was having a revolution in, or what Burkina Faso would have turned into if that wasn't under siege. So it's hard to know what socialist developments would have turned into. And, I don't know what the USSR would have been like temporarily. Unfortunately, I think China has opened its far too much into world markets to really have a distinct system. Capitalism is a global system, so it's hard to completely escape that, even when it wants to. So I think it's important to know that when you fight for justice, oftentimes you are going to end up fighting against capitalism and for communism.
Right. I think a lot of people come to communism that way, or to socialism, or whatever. You get radicalized because you see that things aren't working for you. That's what radicalizes you. And then you realize, oh, it's not working for anyone really, except for, these few people that it's very much designed to work for.
Yeah.
And, I think that that's probably precisely how, I read something about that when he first took his trip to the Soviet Union, that was sort of what flipped the switch for him. Like, it was that trip when he really, embraced and realized, okay, like, it's actually supposedly on the books illegal to be racist here, to, be a white supremacist. So maybe that was what opened up his eyes to that there could be a better world, and capitalism could not provide that world for him.
And maybe social equality, even when a whole country is going through hard times, like the Soviet Union was going through for its entire existence, or like what Cuba continues to go through, or what North Korea has continued to. That brings a sense of unity to the people that it doesn't in countries where there's large disparity of income inequality and of class position, that even people who are relatively well off are still trying to maintain that position, especially in the United States, when if you lose your job, you don't get the right to health care.
I heard an expression this week that I thought, really kind of ties into this discussion of, if you scratch a liberal, then a fascist bleeds. That was an expression I heard just this week. Somebody said it to me. And, it is that comfort level that, generally the demographics of who is a liberal is it's a very comfortable place you're coming from. You're probably a little bit higher from a higher education background. You're probably white. You're probably, the certain demographic, and that you don't want the status quo to change if you're one of the people that's benefiting from it.
I've observed that generally the most oppressed people tend not to vote, tend not to be engaged in the contemporary understanding of politics because it doesn't do anything for them. I've seen pictures, basically said the hood under Bush and the hood under Obama, same picture. So, there's a sense that if someone's, been working the same job that they don't like, or in the same field that they don't like for several years on end, clearly who's president isn't going to shape their everyday lives. Who's in Congress doesn't really help them. I mean, they like raises, but like they still spend most of their time in the workplace, it seems. So, do we really want to spend most of our waking hours in a place that we can't wait to escape from, so we can and our money that is the reward for having to endure our pain there, so we can blow off steam in the time we're not doing that, and so we can have enough energy to do it again? That doesn't seem
right. And people fight so desperately to keep that. Like, the idea of even bringing up that things should be different, is such a knee-jerk reaction from people of, oh, well, why would you want things to be different from this?
If people are honest, like I've said in the past, nobody likes mortgages, nobody likes rent. Everybody likes finding a way not to pay for things. And everybody also likes complaining about the things they consume. If they had a way to impact the production of the things they consume, maybe that would be a more fun experience for them. I imagine in that the focus groups under a communist order would be very, very contentious at times, but I think it would be very fulfilling. People might be pissed off that they didn't get their way about how, such and such phone or laptop or food item is used, or how the city planning ends up in the architectural design of something, or anything that directly impacts their everyday life and the things they use, and the environment in which they live, but they have a hand in it. So in a way, a post-capitalist society may be in some ways more stressful than a capitalist society, but at least it's stressful because you're controlling it. It's not stressful because you're not controlling it. It's not stressful because you're following orders. People want to have control over what they do in a certain way. Hey, they you think when people complain about their jobs, they're saying that they wish that they control their workplaces? I don't know, but maybe if they knew there was a possibility, they might feel that way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I hope that every time that we, have everything I do when I'm doing, discussions like this or media presentations or whatever, trying to wake people up that maybe you would like things a little, if you dislike things now, maybe you should experiment with what it could look like in a different system. Open your eyes to that possibility. And I don't know. I think maybe, I don't know. I like to hope, but then again, I see that we're kind of in exactly the same position as Paul Robeson was 50 something years ago. It's more like 70 years ago, isn't it? 70 years ago. Like, so many things old or new again. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to end on a downer though. So I'll let you take it away for the ending, the last few words here.
I think that it's promising that there are positions that people are taking, like defund the police, since the Minneapolis uprisings, that they weren't talking about several months ago. There are things that slowly get accepted into the collective consciousness of the population that are different from how people were talking about them before. Now it is a normal thing for people to demand universal health care and universal college. It is a normal thing for people to want a higher minimum wage than they have now. It is a normal thing, I think, for there to be people demanding lower housing costs. I think that a lot of people are seeing tying your healthcare to employment is a bad idea because of the coronavirus. So I think that there's some hope that some people will see a different way. It's a long process. As it's going to take a lot of effort to make things better. It's going to mean that people are going to have to sacrifice some comforts in the short term to fight for it. But we're trying to make a better world here. We're trying to make it so that people are not under siege and terror, and to a lesser extent under alienation, because all of those things are bad. And we want people to enjoy themselves in their everyday existence. And I think under a system in which the doctors were in control of healthcare along with their patients, then we might just solve the coronavirus a lot quicker than we are now. If it was a globalized community instead of a nationalist one, we might have been working together on this. If workers in large U.S. metropolitan areas started seeing people in Latin America who work in the same company they do as their coworkers, maybe they would start organizing across national lines and not try and get at things for themselves. They have a common interest. Every worker in the world has a common interest, and that is to oppose the order that it is now and construct one that is in their best interest and ultimately in the best interest of the human population. It is in the best interest of the population to not have a police presence whose main function is to deter property crime, because property crime is a social construction that shouldn't be possible in a better world. So there are so many ways in which things could get better. We're still working on it. A lot of people are still working on it, but I think there's some hope because we're always talking in different ways. The corporations are starting to say Black Lives Matter might be a good sign. It might be cynical, but at least they're saying it now.
Right, even if they're just saying it because they fear the repercussions of not saying it, that they might get boycotts or they might, they fear not saying it. And I guess, even though they're coming purely from their pocketbooks, that they have that fear of not saying it is, does signify something.
It's
so thank you. That gave me a little bit of hope, even if it was from somewhere very cynical.
It is in the public's interest to oppose capitalism for their own good and for the good of the people around them. And eventually it was in the interest of the slave master to break down slavery. Now, some of that had to took revolts from the slaves, of course. And now it's going to take revolts of the workers to take over the mode of production for themselves in order to build a better world in which people are not under constant siege, terror, and alienation. So let's keep building that. Let's keep building for that.
All
Let's
right.
build bigger autonomous zones.
Right. More than just a 6-block autonomous zones. If you want to be self-sustaining, you need to be a pretty good size autonomous zone. And I think Jersey is definitely the place that we should start setting that stuff up. How about you, Jeremy?
Yeah.
We're always saying we want the Democratic People's Republic of Jersey. Well, now's the time. Let's go. Thank you so much again for being here, Jeremy. It's so much fun doing this with you.
That's the state of the revolution.
Yep. And the future is yours to create. Go out there and create it. Thanks so much for joining us today, everyone.